Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear us. I've been asked to say hello twice in case there's any delay. So hello twice. It's a joke I've stolen from Charlie Brooker's anti-screen wipe, of course, with wash your hands twice. Welcome to this evening's Zoom Q+A. It's the first one I've done. I'm slightly nervous because my technical abilities are less than zero. So thankfully we're in the hands of Ruth Jones from Home's comms team, who's going to be running the technical side of things. It's a collaboration this evening between Home, MUBI and the distributor Anti-Worlds. And we are joined by Ben Rivers.
Hello.
And hopefully we are going to also be joined by Anocha Suwichakornpong. Anocha is in a different country, in a different continent. I think she's in Boston. Mm-hmm. So she may just come in with a grand entrance. So fingers crossed that Anocha will be able to join us. And tonight we're going to be discussing the new collaborative film between Anocha and Ben, which is Krabi 2562. By way of a short introduction, the film is an innovative exploration of the Thai tourist community. It's visually elegant, conceptually creative, and a documentary fiction hybrid, which offers an ambition reflection on time, place, and memory. The film is screened at numerous prestigious international festivals. It was at London, where I saw it. I also saw it at Rotterdam, and I was also in Locarno, and I also saw it in Toronto. Kind of followed it around the world watching it. It's released by Anti-Worlds, the UK's premier distributor of esoteric fare, and it appears on MUBI today. So welcome, Ben.
Thanks, Jason.
Pleasure to have you. So I'm going to ask if you could just, last bit of parish business. At the bottom of your screen, you will see a little icon that says Q&A. You will also see a little icon called chat. Now, if you have questions for Ben or Anocha, should you be able to join, if you just enter those preferably into the Q&A box, I can read those out at the end. So feel free to jump in with as many questions as you have, and we'll endeavour to get to those at the end of our little session afterwards. So thank you everyone for joining us. And it's a beautiful evening, 10th week of a increasingly farcically mismanaged lockdown. So we appreciate your time. So Ben, I wondered if you could begin by talking about the origins of the project 2562. Like a lot of the work that you're involved with, it kind of didn't necessarily begin as a film. It was a kind of came from another kind of discipline that you also work with. So I wonder if you could just fill us in on that.
Yeah, so I was invited to, it was the Thailand Biennale, and it was going to be the first one, I think. And I was invited to make a new film in Thailand for that. And I'd never actually been to Thailand before and didn't have any connection with it. And so I just suggested to them I'd like to make a work collaboratively with someone from there. And then I immediately thought of Anocha because she's an old friend, and I love her work, and we've known each other since about 2010, I think. So I just asked her if she wanted to collaborate on a short film, and she said yes. And then we went to Krabi, which is where the Biennale was taking place, and we were there for maybe 10 days doing our first kind of research trip. We had a great guide who we kind of made a kind of version of her for the film. And the actual guide who took us around, she's got a bit part in the film as well. She plays the DP on the beach. But during those first 10 days, we came up with a very simple short film to make, which we did make very quickly. But the thing was, we really loved Krabi. Neither of us had been there before. And it just seemed like a very rich area, and there was so much more to do than make a short film there. So that's when we started kind of accumulating these different sort of ingredients that we wanted to put into a much longer film, and then started writing it. Yeah, just and sort of at first trying to think about all these actual things that we found. How could we navigate them using a certain amount of fiction? And so then it was just a matter of sort of building up a script, if we can call it that. It's very, a few pages long. It starts out as a list, and then it sort of morphs into a few pages of, wanting to really to make a film where the character is the place, and how do we navigate around that.
And place is important to your work in general. I mean, when I think back to your work, all of your films, and whether it's the kind of narrative, longer length pieces and the shorter pieces, place seems to always be important for you. Are you inspired by the areas in which you work? You strike me as someone that likes to go a little bit out of your comfort zone to do the work that you do and discover new places and discover new cultures.
Yeah, or not necessarily new, but it could be Scotland, which is not so new to me, but I still I do. Yeah, I like to start with a place or a person or a community, and just spend time there and start to kind of get to know people, get to just also just sort of being in a place and listening to it and watching how it changes with the light, or there's so many sort of levels to a place that kind of need to be experienced before I start turning the camera. So yeah, I think it's definitely not an arbitrary thing that comes second. I'm not thinking of a film and then finding the location. It's very much about a kind of exploration, and then the film kind of grows out of that place, or like I say, out of a person that I've maybe known for years, or but there's some kind of spark to start a film.
And again, as well as a shared sense of place, you like to work in a collaborative. There's a collaborative element to your work. You said that you'd known Anocha for a while and admired the work she'd made. Anocha, again, very, very highly regarded on the festival circuit. Was there also a sense of as well as you thought it would be a good working collaboration, a sense of a shared kind of sensibility and aesthetic? Because I think the thing that strikes me that joins your work is you both seem to be interested in the kind of hybrid of fiction and documentary, and I see that in your work, and I also see it in Anocha's. Did that kind of suggest itself that this would be a fruitful collaboration, and that it would kind of bring these sensibilities together?
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right. I mean, we're both sort of interested in those two things, and everything that kind of comes in between those two things as well. It's not always one or the other. In fact, I'm a big believer in the idea that everything is a fiction of sorts. So I think, yeah, we definitely sort of chime on that respect, and also looking at the world in a kind of fragmentary kind of way, different ways of storytelling. I mean, these are things that I guess I was starting to play around with even more with my previous feature, The Sky Trembles. And then if you see Anocha's, by the time it gets dark, she's got all these layers of narrative that are kind of moving backwards and forwards and sideways, and but there's also some kind of documentary elements. And I think I was interested in I am interested in making maybe more fictional films than I have done. And she was quite interested in the fact that my films have more documentary. So I think in a way we were trying to meet in the middle to find a kind of a balance between these two things. And so that's what we tried to do, was to sort of make a film that kind of moves yeah, between actual people and different types of storytelling, stories told or experienced or recalled, repeated. You know, there's all these kind of mirrors in the film, which we were really interested in. You know, so I don't know. I don't know. To some, it might seem like it's overly fragmentary, but to us, it really made quite a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've had the benefit of watching it a number of times, and I'm not saying this just to get viewing numbers up. It is one of those films, like I think the best cinema in general, that you take something new away from it each time. And the first time you watch it, it's a much more of a sensory experience. The second time you watch it, it's much more of you're thinking about the community in the film. And I think it's wonderful when films do that. Each time you watch it, there's something different to take away. I want to come back to some of the things that you said, but I also want to go back. Whenever I've interviewed filmmakers that work in a collaborative way, I'm thinking most recently of Joe Lawler and Christine Malloy, two filmmakers who I really like. They were saying that they kind of immediately fell into a pattern of working where one would take more responsibility for actors, one would take more responsibility for kind of technical elements. That's just an example. I'm not saying that's what they actually said. Was that also the sense with you and Anocha? Did you find yourselves immediately kind of gravitating to doing one specific thing, or was it much more of a just rolling up your sleeves and just both getting involved in all aspects of the process?
Yeah, I think that's more my style for the collaborative films. I like the idea that that we don't separate things, that we kind of make most decisions together. So and it was the first time I've really sat behind a monitor, because I've always done the camera work myself. So that was quite interesting for me to sit behind a monitor with Anocha and kind of direct from there rather than physically have my hands on the camera. I mean, I did do that for a few days just because Kai had an accident. So I managed to steal the camera for a few days while he had his knee sorted out. But no, I think we and it's the same when I work with Ben Russell and Gabriela Brantes. I think you know, we try to make all decisions together. I mean, obviously with this one, it was difficult for me because it's a language I don't understand. So obviously when people are speaking lines, I'm reliant on Anocha to make sure that the lines are spoken as we want them. I mean, I can tell from gesture and from intonation, you know, something about like whether it was a good take or not, but I don't know if they've actually, you know, fluffed their lines or whatever. So so yeah, we would talk after each shot about that if there was dialogue. But yeah,
I want to also add, because one of the other central tenets of the film is a sense of community. It's a film which is, I mean, it's a film about a lot of things, but it's very much about the notion of community. And I wanted to ask on a kind of organic level how you made sure that it was not only about community, but incorporated the community in which you shot, because you went about that in quite a, as I said, a natural way, hiring local crew, cast and crew, incorporating members of the community in the film in other ways. And I think that's what gives it its, I'm trying to think, I keep using the word organic, and that's probably the best word I'm going to be able to come up with at 10 to 8 on a Friday evening. But was it important to you that sense that the community felt involved? Because it's an area, tourism is one of the subjects of the film, it's an area which has been so kind of pillaged in some ways. Did you want the people in the film to be not only trusting of you coming into that community, but also to know that it was a film by, for, and about them?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. It was right from the start. That was really key to our project. I you know, I feel like right when we first started talking to the guide, even it was like we want to talk to and involve the local community as much as possible. And in actual fact, when we got a small amount from the Thai Biennale about to go towards a film. We didn't actually tell them. I can't remember exactly the timeline, but I don't think we told them we were making a feature. But one of the things about the Biennale was that it was one of the good things about it. There was some negative things which I won't go into, but one of them was that a lot of the artists really did want to work with the local community. It wasn't like just bringing in artwork as finished things. It was really, there was a lot of involvement, and so the community were really into that, and got kind of excited about the project. So and this could be everyone in the film is either playing themselves, or they're playing somebody like themselves, or they're playing a character that we like. For example, the guide is playing a cinematographer, or but the hotel receptionist works in the hotel, and the projectionist is the old projectionist of that cinema, and he looks after it, and and so on. The boxer was a really famous boxer, but this is also why we wanted to bring in somebody from the outside. So this mysterious figure, this woman who comes in at the beginning. In a way, she's the stand-in for Anocha and I, a kind of avatar in a way, in a sense, as somebody who is a stranger to that place, and we don't know exactly who she is, or her purpose, but she enables us to kind of move around these people and places, but then at a certain point, we realize that the film is not about her. She's not a conventional central character. We don't really care about her. She becomes like one more ghost in the story, and what we're really interested in is these local people. And in fact, something that I wouldn't have thought of, but the tourists are also part of that community, and that was really important for Anocha, because she grew up in quite a touristy place, and for me, I imagined that she would, or anyone local would see a tourist as just an alien who's coming in and leaving, and there's no real connection. But actually, they are seen as another part of the community, even if it's transient. So that was interesting to have that.
And did you do a screening for everybody when the film was finished? Have you taken it back and screened it to everybody that was involved?
We were about to. There was the release of the film was about to happen in Thailand when the whole lockdown thing happened. So yeah, when it's over, we're hoping to do a nice big outdoor screening, maybe down in Krabi.
That'd be perfect. Something to look forward to. Now, I wanted to also talk about the Holocene and the Holocene period, because it's a film in which it kind of it deals with time and memory and reflects on place, but it's also got various kind of time threads kind of running through it. The past, the present, kind of the near future. I wondered, because it's interesting, people watching this Q&A, not everybody might have had the chance to see the film yet. Most people will have. But I wonder if you could just talk about that Holocene period and how you kind of wanted to incorporate that into the narrative and the world that you depict and create.
Yeah, well, our working title for the film was actually In the Holocene. One of the reasons why we changed it was that it's not actually correct exactly.
Right.
An important part for us was including the early humans, because one of the sort of selling points for Krabi is that they found very early remains of early humans, and paintings on the wall and bones and objects, and this is, I mean, it's an amazing find, but at the same time, it's also made sort of tacky and into this another thing to attract tourism, and you can see that in the traffic lights at the centre of town with the big sort of Neanderthals holding traffic lights, and so yeah, we really wanted to include those, and just think about the landscape in a place that changes over time, and often changes as a result of human activity. So going from cave people through to a mythical past where people are turned into stone, through to the present, and then even in the present, it's sort of slippery in the film. It's not exactly linear. We're kind of moving backwards and forwards a little, and I think we're both really interested in those sort of slippages in time. So when so we don't really know with the Neanderthal folk, is this kind of some strange time warp that happens, or have they been living on this isolated island for millennia? I don't think we wanted to answer that question. It's one of the many ambiguities in the film, which we wanted to make a film that was open, and kind of allows you to sort of move through these different times without necessarily like questioning.
I think it's open and it's ambiguous, but I think also the thing that I like about this film, and it's something that you may shout me down, is not always necessarily associated with for a better word, could be called artist filmmaking, which is a term I'm not massively comfortable with. But I think this film is very playful. I think there's a very playful sense of, I mean, it's comic in lots of ways. Playful is perhaps a better word. And I think with all of the things you've spoken about, the time slippages, the even the subjects, the tourism and the commercialization, you also have a little bit of fun. I get the sense you're having a little bit of fun in the film, and it seems to me that you're encouraging audiences to take that trip with you and to enjoy themselves while they're watching the film, not just to think and ruminate, but to be playful with it. Was that very much in foremost of your minds when you were making it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we did want to make a sort of a playful film. I think that's one of the nice things about collaborating, is it allows you to do things that maybe you wouldn't maybe do yourself on your own. I don't know, for whatever reason, it kind of frees you up in a certain sense. And I think we both, I mean, not least because we had such a sort of warm, fun time in our first experience of Krabi, that we wanted to make something that had humor in it, and it's something that I think both of us have dipped into our previous films, but maybe wanted to push a little further with this one. But having said that, there is also there's also something occasionally sort of ominous that we wanted to happen, to feel it in the background, this because in a way, what do they call it? The land of smiles or something, Thailand, or it has this kind of the superficial front for tourism of being beautiful, colourful, friendly, but there's also a really oppressive regime that runs it, that is kind of behind this country, and you see that in the beginning with the assembly of the children, this very early kind of indoctrination, a half-hour long assembly every morning. And then you hear it a couple of times in the film, the sound of the military marching, and it was kind of important for us to, have that there as well. Like, it's this thing that is maybe not visibly present, but it's kind of there. And if you're a local, you're aware of it, you know about it, and you can't say the wrong thing, because somebody might be listening. I mean, it's really can be really quite dangerous. So yeah, we wanted to include that. So
I can hear crickets or something in the background. It sounds bucolic.
where I am now.
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking back to the film and the sound.
I don't know.
Now, you mentioned there's something about the sound of the film, which I was going to ask you about, but I think you've kind of covered that.
You've got also 7 questions, I see.
I know, we're going to come to this. I'm also very jealous that you've got a Campari and soda. Well, I've just got a bog standard.
What am I going to do?
Yes, I've got a bog standard glass of water. But I did want to talk about the kind of visual aesthetic of the film, because you mentioned that you shot with Ming Kai, and I think you shot on Super 16mm. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, the format and texture and aesthetic is a really big part of your work, going back to your very earliest work. So I wanted to ask you about that. But if you can hold that thought, I also wanted to ask you a little bit about, at the moment, it feels like we're in an environment where people are more open to being quite experimental in their viewing habits. The success of
I am listening, Jason. I am
That's
listening.
right.
No, but Anocha, she's just texted me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just reply to her and get her to join, because I think she got the time wrong.
Oh, okay. I'll let you do that. A funny story or something in the.
I'm just saying we're on now, because she's saying be on in 20 minutes. So maybe she'll be able to,
the good thing is she'll be able to join. You can leave her to do all the hard work and answer the questions from our.
yeah.
You can just put your feet up and get another.
She said she might be quite quiet because I think she may have just woken up or something.
Okay, that's all right. Well, we'll wait for us to join. But as I said, I wanted to, if you could talk a bit about the aesthetic in this film and your films in general, but also about this climate that I think we're in, where people seem to be more receptive.
Yeah,
to what they watch. I think Bait opened a lot of people up to the idea of watching archive and different kind of textures in cinema. The success of something like Parasite has alerted people perhaps to the idea that watching films with subtitles shouldn't be a barrier to. So 2 questions: the look of this film and how you use texture, but also, do you feel we are in a slightly more liberated environment now, where as an artist who's making films, there's a possibility that broader audiences might be more receptive to the kind of work that you make? And no show would you do for this one?
I don't know. I mean, I hope so. I don't know. I made the mistake of quickly looking on MUBI, and my eye will go immediately to the 1-star review. But anyway, I don't know. I always like to think that what I'm making and the kind of films that I enjoy watching by my peers and other filmmakers, and I always feel like they're accessible, and they're I'm not making them for a select audience. I want as many people to watch them as possible, and but we have been very indoctrinated with a certain ways of storytelling, and it's hard to break that. But yeah, maybe it's possibly with the greater accessibility available online has enabled people to kind of watch stuff which they wouldn't have been able to see at the cinema, because cinemas are so kind of beholden to distributors and a huge complicated system, as you know.
Yeah.
So only very few cinemas, the small independent cinemas, can kind of work around that. So I don't know. That's a hard question to answer, but I like the optimism of it.
And I also think it's an interesting time, you know, reference something that you said. I think that people now that they have done, they're almost they're willing. I think Anocha is here.
Hey,
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
that's all right.
Ben's furious because we've done all the hard work.
Yeah.
So that I'll give you. We've got some questions that are going to come from the audience at the end, and we have quite a lot of those. But what I'll do, if I just sort of recap some of the things that we've spoken about,
Okay. Yeah,
in case you want to add anything, and if not, I've got a question that I'd like to ask you anyway. So if you're happy with that, and thank you so much for joining us. So we've spoken a little bit about the fact that you and Ben collaborated. So the idea that it was a collaboration. We've spoken about the fact that it was very much a film made for the community, a community of which you're very aware of. We've spoken a little bit about the Holocene period and the time shifts in the film. And we've also spoken a little bit about the kind of visual and audio aesthetic of the film. But if it's okay, I'd like to come back to this idea of community, because Ben did speak about it, but I'd like to build, and I kept using the word organic. It's a film which is about community. But it's
sorry, you got.
Can you hear me?
You got cut out a little bit.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So this is a film which is very much about community, and it's very much involved in the community, and it's very much about a community and for that community. So I just wondered if you could say something about the importance of working in that way, involving the cast and crew in the actual making of the film.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the film originated from Krabi, and because, you know, we were from that place and from the people whom we met. So it's, you know, I mean, I think we could say that without those people, without the place, there wouldn't be this film. And, you know, we try to, well, I mean, maybe Ben mentioned already, but we had when we were working on the installation piece, we had like a local coordinator who's, you know, who still lives there, and she was really quite instrumental in you know, taking us places and introduce us to, you know, the local people there. And so I think at some point, even though we added like some fictional elements, but at some point we kept coming back to the idea that, okay, you know, ultimately it's really the people that we met during the field trip, the first one, that are going to be like the people who we meet last. I mean, well, I'm not last, but we come back to them at the end of the film, because, you know, it's kind of like you know, it's for them. And so we kind of like, you know, the narrative wanders, and we have this fictional character who at some point we just like, you know, I mean, we killed her in a way. Yeah, so it's coming back to the original intention, you know, working with and actually, I think maybe Ben mentioned already also that, you know, like when he went back to film those scenes with did you mention?
No, I didn't mention it. No.
The projectionist and the hotel receptionist, you know, we added that on later, and it's kind of like, you know, we just followed their daily activities, which in some way was kind of how we thought of the film in the beginning, but, you know, because of time constraint and this and that, we didn't get to do it until, you know, Ben went back to pick up those scenes later. And in a way, I think it worked better too, because some time had passed from the first phase of shooting. And so going back and then, reconnecting with them and just following their lives. So, and actually I'm still in touch with some of the people there. And there was this girl who, not the local coordinator, but her friend whom we also met during Thailand Biennale. She wanted to screen the film at her house, which is kind of like a community center that she built herself. So I mean, the last time I put her in touch with a distributor in Bangkok, but it was going to be like a free screening, and she wanted, of course, we want to film. There's not really a cinema in Krabi, so I mean that we just like a screening at her house, which I thought was great. Yeah.
Ben was saying that you're hoping to take the film back and screen it for everybody that was involved.
Yeah. Right.
I'm going to ask one more question because we've actually got lots of questions from people that are watching.
Yeah.
But Ben was talking about how he enjoyed the collaborative process, working with you, Anocha, on the installation and the short film and then the expanded feature. How was that collaborative process for you? I mean, I guess you have to be nice about Ben now because he's listening. But was that a way that you were used to working before, or was this a new way of working for you in such a close collaboration?
Yeah, I guess I have. Well, I mean, I did collaborate with some filmmakers before, but not for feature film. I guess more like shorter pieces. I mean, I'm not just saying this because Ben's here and he's looking at me, but I mean, I think we both can agree that it went really quite well. I mean, it was quite smooth, and I think that has a lot to do with the relationship that we have and the friendship we've built over the years. And once you decided to collaborate with someone, you have to of course, set your ego aside, and otherwise, what's the point of doing it, right? I mean, if you're just gonna be wanting to do your own way all the time, there's no point of collaborating. So yeah, and I would say for the most part, it was really smooth. And I think maybe during editing, it was when we had more have different opinions on some creative decisions, and and it was like a process of this discussion and negotiation, and but we're still friends. Still talking, and I'm here even though I was very late.
I think just the edit was really quite complicated. I mean, to get the things in the order that we both felt was right.
But I think I really appreciate that process, the editing process that really kind of just pushed us to kind of confront each other in a way. And that was a good experience too.
Okay, well, look,
I wanted the birds in the cinema to maybe be like 10 minutes long. Or
I mean, the film is quite a nice, Ben and I were saying it's a very playful film, but it's also, I like the fact it's a bit of a love letter to cinema because you have the projectionist playing the projectionist, you have the people that met in the cinema, the rooftop. I mean, it reminded me of the pleasure of cinema and why we kind of miss it while we're in lockdown. So for me, watching the film again recently was actually quite romantic. Online is great, and we love MUBI, but physical cinemas are great too. And I think we miss them. So look, we have some time left. Should we take some questions from the audience that are watching?
Sure.
Now, I've already explained to Ben and Anocha that my technical skills are less than zero, so I'm going to hit a button, and hopefully it's not going to cut everybody off. So let's have a look. Okay. Okay, it's first question. I'm just going to take them as they appear. There's a question here. Ben, when you introduce fiction elements into a documentary and manipulation is then permitted, how do you know when to stop? How do you balance the real and the fictional? You get that? Do you want me to repeat it?
No, it's an interesting question. How do I know when to stop? I don't know if there's such a clear division that I know when it's starting or stopping, or I think, you know, the thing that we're both kind of interested in, or Anocha can answer this as well, but is the kind of uncertainty of, like, where, you know, in a film, like where construction and where reality and where actuality, where the divides actually lie. So yeah, for me, it's not about like setting up a rule that something should be a certain amount of documentary observation and then a certain amount of fiction. It's kind of in a way that's also a collaborative thing, collaborating with the person in the film or the landscape or whatever it might be, you know, to sort of I mean, in a way, like I've made films that on the surface, but people have thought the whole thing is an observational documentary, but in actual fact, the whole thing is directed. So, you know, who's to say like what, you know, where the fiction begins and ends?
Yeah.
And for you, Anocha?
Yeah, I feel the same way. Is I mean, I would say, you know, like when you shoot somebody, you know, like we have a camera like pointing at them, you know, to which degree is that like a pure, like, you know, like documentary? I mean, even we were filming the boxer, you know, the old man at his house, you know, he knew that we were filming him, right? So, and even though I was like feeding some questions and stuff, it's always, I feel like, you know, documentary has like manipulation, but you know, always as well. So yeah, so it's not so clear cut. Even though the people from Krabi that we cast as themselves, you know, they still want to rehearse some lines, right? So it's not as if, you know, they were just like delivering the line for the very first time. Yeah, so it's not like only the local people were like acting in the documentary part, and then the professional actors were acting in the fictional part. It was a little bit more complicated than that, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so some of the questions here, I think you've kind of covered in some of the answers. So if I'm missing things out, it's not because I'm deliberately. I think you've covered some of it. But there is a question here that I really like, actually, because it's been troubling me. It says that the mystery woman says her parents visited the cinema in 1981. But yeah, see. But later, the cinema manager in interview says that the cinema opened in 1982. Is significant.
Yeah.
That's not the only discrepancy, you know, in the film, like in terms of the characters talking about something. I mean, yeah, like the old man also said, like, you know, two different versions about his house. And one was like, I don't know, it's like I don't remember the exact year.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it was built at the turn of the century, but then it was 80 years old.
Yeah.
And he also changes his age.
Right.
Well.
Yeah. How long he's been living there, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of goes with what you were asking about earlier. These sort of time, you know, and the kind of flexibility of time in the film. And I think that also refers to the kind of the numbers and the dates and
I don't personally think that it was like inaccuracy, you know, like what the old man had to say, because that's what we do in real life to anyone. You know, we sometimes we tell slightly different versions of the same story. It doesn't even have to be like something that's as like, you know, factual as numbers, but, you know, like describing something, you know, like even in Q&A sessions like this, you know, yeah, so it's kind of like, I don't know, it's a little bit slippery, and but I think that's real for me. You know, that's how reality is. Yeah.
There's another question here which I think is really good, and Ben was talking a little bit about the audio in the film. He's saying how much they're enjoying the webinar, which is always nice. They'd like to ask about the sound and the way it slips between a narrative device and something which functions independently of the picture, and occasionally almost in rivalry with the picture itself. Very good question. I like that. Anybody care to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I can say like it was. I don't know, personally, on a personal level, I've been getting more and more interested in sound, and maybe Ben too. I don't know, we haven't actually talked about this. So when we started embarking on this project, we wanted to also collaborate with a sound artist, Ernst Carroll, and he was coming with us to Krabi, right? So and Ernst's, you know, background, and in case, you know, some people don't know about his practice, he's a like sound anthropologist, sound artist. So we had actually it was a luxury. Did you mention this? We had 2 sound recordists on set, which is like really a luxury. Nobody does that. I mean, not at least not someone that I know or have worked with before. So we had one sound recordist who recorded all the, you know, like dialogue, like the narrative, like the normal, like, you know, usual sounds on set. And Ernst was free to roam around to record, you know, the surroundings, sound from the nature, or, you know, he was just doing, like, while we were filming, he would be off, like, in the vicinity recording sounds. And we talked about this before, you know, before shooting, that we wanted to give him as much freedom, you know, in terms of, you know, collecting the material, because we wanted to have a lot of sounds to work with in post-production. And he was also the one who did the sound mix for us, the initial stage before the re-recording mix. And so I think it was, you know, we talk a lot about Ben and I collaborating, but Ernst was really a collaborator for us, you know, as well, with us. And so do you want to fill in something that I was going somewhere, but I felt like maybe I didn't quite get there. Yeah.
No, I think you're right. I mean, and you know, having those 2 sound recordists, as you say, that allowed us, you know, to kind of move, you know, which I think we both do anyway, but we could maybe do it with even more fluidity with because of all the material we had, was sort of moving between the kind of sync sound, and then kind of moving off into these other places which were entirely kind of coming from some other place, which you know, Ernst could have been wandering miles off from where we were filming. Or, you know, for example, what I mentioned earlier about the marching. When we were recording in the forensic lab, this severed finger, Ernst was off just wandering outside, and that laboratory was on a kind of police academy, police academy sort of base. So he was just out and he was recording a bird that he really liked. And then, you know, this group marches by. And yeah, I think, and then in the edit, we have this material which we can then kind of tap into and say, okay, this scene needs to sort of move away from the everyday. From, you know, we don't want to just have like an illustrative sound. We want something that, you know, with the sound that's going to sort of actually take our mind somewhere else while we're looking, which is, you know, it's actually what happens. I mean, I think it's what happens to most people. It certainly happens to me. Like, it's a little bit like daydreaming or something, where you might be doing one thing, but you're thinking about something entirely different.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, sound is a really good way of kind of tapping into that. Yeah.
Okay. Are you both okay? We've got quite a lot of questions. Are you okay for a few more to keep going? It's like a marathon Zoom. Now this is an interesting question, and it is to both of you, but I think Anocha might be the one to answer. And this, I'll read it out. I thought the scene where a male film director asks a young female assistant if she wanted to join the karaoke was funny and relatable from an Asian female perspective. Whose idea was this? And do you relate to subtle tension or a dynamic sometimes existing between post-colonial white male positions and Asian women culture engaging with you through Occidental manner? That's a very small.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall that moment because that was not scripted. Yeah. Do you remember, Ben?
Well, I don't. You know, we definitely wanted like a white male director. You know, somebody who's definitely wasn't from there in the role of this filmmaker who's sort of come into this beautiful scene, and you know, in a sense, it was our version of you know, the beach, or you know, but on a much smaller scale. We wanted there to be a commercial being made, and we wanted the director to be you know, yeah, maybe white European. I don't know who would have played it if Oliver hadn't texted me a couple of nights before saying that he was on holiday in Thailand.
But for people who haven't seen the film yet, just explain who it is that's playing the director.
Yeah, so it's a film director, Oliver Lax, who was also I mean, he sort of stars in my previous feature where I sort of I'm a parasite on his film set. It was about halfway through, and then the film turned into a fiction, a kind of fever dream fiction. So yeah, I mean, he thought it was funny. He said that I'm his like fetish idiot film director.
Yeah, he was just on holiday too. I mean, I know by chance. You know, he was not like coming to Thailand for, you know, like a project or anything like that. And it was like really just by chance that we were filming around the same time. Yeah.
But I mean, and that scene was really, I mean, we thought that whole scene was, I mean, really one of these scenes that was we wanted it to be really playful and funny, even if there is a sort of darker critical undercurrent to it.
Yeah, I have to say though that even if this man was not a white person, it would still be, I don't know. I think it would still be quite funny. But of course, you know, the language, the communication, the loss of you know, like the breaking down the communication between them, that added to the humor. But yeah, of course it has like, you know, but it maybe would come across as a little bit darker if the humor was a little less, I guess. Yeah.
It was done in one take, and I think we were just so happy that she put him down so hard, but in such a sort of, you know, she's a very gentle person, quite quiet,
Yeah,
but really.
She was really like our film crew. You know, she was not. I mean, she was a production manager on set. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have another question. It goes back to something else, Anocha, that Ben and I were talking about, and this is more about the visual aesthetic of the film, because we were speaking about the fact that the film is shot on 16mm. And this is a question from Will Jennings, who's an artist that also makes film. And he's complimenting you on the film for the fact that both of your work seems so effortless in catching fleeting observations. But how much pre-planning is involved when you're shooting on 16mm? Because there must be a lot. It's not like where you're shooting on digital and it's very, you know, you can move quickly. It must involve more pre-planning. So the question is about the amount of pre-planning involved and how, given that pre-planning, you make your films manage to seem so effortless in catching these kind of fleeting observations.
Yeah, you know, I have to say I was actually quite I shot mostly on digital. It was a long time since I shot anything on film. So like, you know, going into this project with the idea of shooting on 16mm, I also thought that we would have to like, you know, plan everything to the T. And I was quite surprised that it was, you know, not quite like that. Like, I mean, you know, of course we planned, you know, scenes and the actors, but it was not as if everything was like, carefully blocked, you know, mapped out and like rehearsed. Yeah, I think Ben works. He's much. I mean, you've only shot on film, right?
Yeah.
And but there is a lot of flexibility, which I somehow hadn't anticipated. Yeah.
And Ben?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we. I mean, we had a shooting schedule for each day. That was more to do with, you know, we had such a short amount of time, you know, based on our very meager budget. And so we had to have a certain amount of time in, you know, blocked out in per day for each scene, as it were. But there wasn't really a great deal of storyboarding or anything like that. We would tend to turn up at that place, and we'd sort of worked out roughly the way that we wanted to shoot it and block it and everything. But and then I think we just we had a few days to sort of go around Krabi, sort of filming around the places where we'd filmed people, but kind of having a bit of, you know, an hour or two here and there to just film stuff that didn't involve any of the characters. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think we did. I don't know. I think a lot of it is just familiarizing yourself with the place beforehand without the camera, and then hoping that you know, relying on the universe a little bit for some of these things to happen or present. You know, sometimes you just see something quickly when you're in the middle of a scene, like on a rooftop, and you see some birds, and then you just quickly have to move the camera and follow it.
Okay, I'm gonna bring it to an end, but there's a general question that I'm going to ask, and I think it's probably the question that gets asked on every Zoom Q. And the question, a few people have asked it, is just for both of you, just to give an overview of some of the things that you've been watching whilst you're in lockdown. And Ben, you're going to have to repeat yourself because we were having this conversation kind of before everybody came in. But I think people would just be interested to hear what kind of things you've been watching and catching up on in general, film, moving image wise.
Well, the latest Rick and Morty's have come out. So that's been really good. And The Shivering Truth, also on Adult Swim, is really good. Also, yeah, all the a lot of the Joseph Losey's and Jean-Pierre Melville that have been on our friends MUBI. Yeah, actually, MUBI's
other online providers available, I should say.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it's MUBI's been it's been a good resource. Yeah, and then some other stuff. Oh, there was a really great film about Charlton Heston.
A film about Charlton Heston.
Not Charlton Heston. I'm getting it wrong. Another actor from way more. Oh God, what was it called?
That would be interesting.
Yeah. I'll
Not Hayden.
I'll come back to you on that.
And Anocha?
Yeah, just I think that the last film I watched, this was just like 2 days ago, or a few days ago. Maybe 2 days ago. Adam Curtis, Hypernormalization, which I hadn't watched before, and also catching up with Joanna Hog's older films, because I had only seen Souvenir till this point, so I'm just going back. Yeah, like I said.
And have you enjoyed the other Joanna Hogg films?
Yeah.
Because the Souvenir Part 2 is coming.
I know. Can't wait. Yeah.
Very, very talented filmmaker, I think. Joanna Hogg, she's great. Ben, have you remembered the actor?
Yes, Sterling Hayden.
All right. Yeah, I thought it's great. I've seen it. It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, Pharaohs of Chaos. Is it?
Yeah, he just sort of walked out of his life and just bought a boat.
Yeah.
And just sailed around the world drinking.
Yes. It was brilliant.
Sounds like a great way to live your life. Okay, I think we've been on for over an hour. So Ben, I think that's the most you've ever spoken in a.
Yeah, it is. I really need another drink.
You need another drink. So, Anocha, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciated. Huge thank you to everyone who's listened. Krabi 2562 by Anocha and Ben is now available on MUBI. It's released by Anti-Worlds. Thank you to Andy, Sam, and Zoe from Anti-Worlds. Thank you to everyone at MUBI, especially Irena. And also thank you to Ruth. Ruth is the quiet genius in the background who's made all the technology work. Ruth from Home Communications team. So thank you to everybody. And watch Krabi. As I said, it needs to be watched 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we hope to see you both again in flesh one day at home.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Really lovely. Pleasure. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.